These are the days in May when young men and women are capped and gowned, their hands clutching diplomas, their ears tuned to some wise person telling them, "You are the future." For many deep in debt with few prospects, that future looks pretty bleak. It's enough to make some believe the siren song of Peter Thiel. He's the billionaire venture capitalist who's been beseeching students to drop out of a university system he says is broken, churning out too many half-educated graduates seeking too few jobs. Thiel puts his money where his mouth is and pays selected students $100,000 each to drop out and focus on ideas that will benefit themselves and the world at large. Waiting for graduation, he says, is an expensive waste of time.
We have a bubble in education like we had a bubble in housing in the last decade. Everybody believed you had to have a house and they'd pay whatever it took. Today, everybody believes that we need to go to college and people will pay whatever it takes.
You've described college administrators as the subprime mortgage lenders, in other words, con men. You think
not all of them, but certainly the for-profit schools, the less good colleges are like the subprime lenders, where people are being conned into thinking that this credential is the one thing you need to do better in life, and they're actually not any better off after having gone to college. They typically are worse off because they've amassed all this debt.
You think if the bubble bursts, it's a good thing?
I don't think bubbles bursting are ever good things. I think they are inevitable things.
For Thiel, success seemed inevitable. Child prodigy, chess champion, arrogantly self-confident. He breezed through Stanford undergrad and law schools. With his Midas touch, he took the millions he made as a co-founder of PayPal and turned that into billions as the first investor in Facebook. And you're a billionaire before the age of 40.
I guess that might be correct, yes.
No, it is correct.
Yes. Yes, that is correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present the chairman of the Thiel Foundation, Peter Thiel.
His 20 Under 20 fellowship is Thiel's answer in miniature to what he calls the questionable value of higher education.
I think we're going to have a fascinating afternoon as we listen to some of these incredible visions for the future.
Each year, Thiel will select 20 students and pay them $100,000 apiece to work on their ideas.
I want to make complexity our new paradigm because only by understanding how our world actually works can we hope to make it better.
These finalists are making their pitches.
The effectiveness is inversely proportional to time of diagnosis. If we
the only condition, drop out of school. Your megaphone is saying, don't go to college. Is that what you really mean?
I'm saying that people should think hard about why they're going to college. If your life plan is to be a professor or to be a doctor or some other career where you need a specific credential, you should and probably have to go to college. If your plan is to do something very different, you should think really hard about it.
The educational establishment dismissed the idea as dangerous, nasty, and misguided.
Our thought was this is going to be a very idiosyncratic small program. And the fact that it was controversial was a big surprise to us, but it was because an awful lot of parents are quite worried about the education system. There's a great deal of anxiety beneath the surface.
With only half of recent college graduates in full-time jobs and college debt topping $1 trillion, Thiel believes college has become just another debt-fueled luxury.
I did not realize how screwed up the education system is. We now have $1 trillion in student debt in the U.S. That $1 trillion, if you want to describe it cynically, you can say it's paid for $1 trillion of lies about how good education is.
That's such a sweeping statement. You're suggesting that people graduate as either dunces or ne'er-do-wells. There's been a huge number of people who've contributed extraordinarily to the society in the last 20, 30 years. We live longer lives because of those people.
Yes, we have a society where successful people are encouraged to go to college, but it's a mistake to think that that's what makes people successful.
But what you're saying suggests a concentration on all of the practical things in life. But some of the impractical things in life are the most valuable.
That's not always true. People say that. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are just impractical things that are of little value. And you have to look at the cost side of the equation. It costs up to $250,000 to go through 4 years of college today. Unfortunately, you have to think about the practical things, and are you actually going to get a job where you can pay off this incredible debt you take on?
He may have a point about the cost. College tuition has quadrupled since 1980, but Thiel says many colleges are unaccountable, bloated institutions where students are learning less than ever before. He says a degree has little more than snob value.
There are all sorts of vocational careers that pay extremely well today. So the average plumber makes as much as the average doctor.
By some calculations, he's absolutely right. And in terms of successful college dropouts, he has his legion of examples.
Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook didn't complete Harvard. Steve Jobs dropped out of Reed College. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard. When you do something entrepreneurial, the credentials are not what really matters. What matters is having the right idea at the right time, the right place.
But all of the examples you give are people who had a very serious brush with higher education, all of them pretty much in elite schools.
It's not causal. You know, Harvard does a great job at picking the winners, and therefore it should get very little credit for turning people into winners.
Well, the same could be applied to your program.
Yes, but the difference is that my program does not involve charging people $250,000.
Believe it or not, U.S. education is by far the best in the world.
Vivek Wadhwa has debated Thiel on the value of higher education.
If you don't even have a bachelor's degree, if you don't even have basic education, you're beyond hope.
He's a successful entrepreneur and professor who teaches at Duke and Stanford. When he heard about Thiel's plan, he was appalled.
How can we now be sending a message to children that they don't need to go to school?
Did the idea gain any traction?
In Silicon Valley, it spread like a wildfire. I was shocked. What is going on with this country? Why is there such an anti-education sentiment brewing in this country?
But what's wrong with a kid who's got a really bright idea and feels, why should I waste my time and money going to school?
Well, the ideas are a dime a dozen. Everyone has them. What makes you successful is being able to take that idea and turn it into an invention and then turn that into a company. Those skills you only gain through education. You're not born with them. There might be one Mark Zuckerberg out of a million entrepreneurs, but there aren't 5 Mark Zuckerbergs.
Thiel's fellowship winners seem confident enough to take their chances.
We're going to pretend that we're at a networking event.
Yet are geeky enough to have to take a short course in tough subjects like handshaking and eye contact.
So hey, I'm Ben.
Dan, great to meet you.
They're skills that winners like Jim Danielson will need to get his idea on the road. He won his $100,000 when he electrified a junkyard Porsche with a motor he says is cheaper and more efficient than what Detroit has to offer. Sujay Tile was an 18-year-old junior at Harvard when he won a fellowship with a plan to create cheap biofuels.
I'm developing a device called the Sun Slitter, and what it does is it rotates your solar panel.
Eden Full was at Princeton. She invented a more efficient way to capture solar energy. I'm just curious what your parents made of this decision of yours.
My parents weren't that supportive at first.
Both of my parents never had a chance to go to college, so having a kid graduate from an Ivy League institution would have been kind of a big deal. So they were a little upset at the beginning.
Did you feel that you were being fully challenged when you were at university?
Challenged in the wrong ways. I wasn't challenged in the things that I was interested in, and so I just struggled a lot.
I was a pre-med student at Harvard, so I was challenged, but as Eden said, not in the ways I wanted to be.
Alex Kiselev is not a Harvard man. He was at a community college when he won his fellowship with a plan to manufacture scientific instruments more cheaply.
Looking at how my parents went through debt,
it's really debilitating for the first 5 to 10, even maybe 15, 20 years of your life, especially if you don't find a very high-paying job as is always promised.
Close to half of the fellows have started businesses at this point. A number of them have received funding from outside investors. I think that across the board, the sense is that they are progressing a lot more with their lives than had they stayed in college.
Easy for him to say. He has degrees in philosophy and law. There's no question you're a very smart guy. There's no question you're a very successful one. Do you think you could have done this without your educational background?
There may have been something specific at Stanford University, but I think if I had gone to any of a number of other universities, it would have been actually quite bad. If I would have gone to Harvard, I would have been tracked to become an investment banker, and I would never even have considered anything else.
Instead, he chose an even more lucrative career and now lives a predictable, pampered billionaire's life, intensely private, demanding, uncomfortable, almost mimicking his hero, Howard Hughes, the Silicon Valley version of a temperamental prima donna. Publicly, he puts millions into some outlandish projects, like funding labs determined to extend life by centuries, and floating sea colonies, still in the model stage, that would be libertarian utopias where American law would not apply.
I just really wanted to meet you. I'm just not a big libertarian. All right, thanks.
His uncompromising belief in low taxes and minimal government has made him a libertarian cult hero. Professor Wadhwa says Thiel's billions have clouded his thinking.
Peter Thiel has made so much money that he's out of touch with the real world. He doesn't meet common people. He doesn't understand their needs. He doesn't understand how important education is for the masses. You can take 24 children and make them successful by giving them on-the-job training. But that's not a lesson for the rest of America. What I worry about is a message that's getting out there to America that's okay to drop out of school, that you don't have to get college. Absolutely dead wrong.
The current crop of fellows, where do you think they'll be, say, 5, 10 years from now?
The majority of them will fail, and they're going to regret not having completed their education.
Already, one company started a year ago by a 19-year-old Thiel fellow who had raised $1.5 million in outside cash, is struggling.
What have you been up to?
But Thiel says it's still early in the process, and getting rich isn't the point. His fellows say they can always return to college if things don't work out.
Of course we're destined to fail. That's what entrepreneurship is. That's what, when you try to do something new, the chances are you're going to fail. The thing is, though, we're starting to fail early, and when we're 21 or 22, whenever all of our friends are graduating college, I think we'll be far more likely to succeed than they will be.
I think it's fair to say you're enjoying the controversy you've started, correct?
I don't enjoy being contrarian. I think
yes, you do.
No, I think it's much more important to be right than to be contrarian.
Do some of your fellow entrepreneurs think that you're sometimes a little bit nuts with the kind of things you support?
It doesn't matter to me whether people think it's crazy or not. What matters is whether we're doing something to make the world a better place.
And you really feel that you are?
If you could convince me that I wasn't, then I'd stop.
And perhaps move to one of his utopian offshore nation states, where only big ideas flourish and schools permanently out for everybody.